Okay, let's talk about fetch, where there's validation and authentication required. So I'm going to make a request from a web page, this one right here. So I'm on localhost, I'm inside of a folder called Apache, and I've got this HTML file. When I click on this paragraph, I want to do a fetch call to get some data that's inside a subfolder here. So inside of Apache no browse, I have this JSON file. There it is. I can fetch that, no problem. And when I click on here, no problem. It fetches that sample JSON file. So it goes, gets it, comes back with a status 200, and it displays it. Now I'm going to clear my cache, reset this. So let's take a look at the basic fetch, what's happening. In my page, I have this paragraph that I click on to do the fetch. So my script, DOM content loaded, the HTML is finished loading. On the paragraph, I'm putting a click listener to call this function. This function will simply try to get this URL. We're appending the accept header, saying that this is what we're expecting to get back from the server, some application JSON file. I'm going to set up my request. I've got the URI. I'm going to say I'm using get. This is the header, and credentials, I'll talk about this in a little bit, but basically I'm saying that if I'm on localhost and I'm making a request to localhost, then any cookies or validation or credentials that I've got are also going to be sent along. If I was requesting something from a different domain, then cookies, username, password, that kind of thing, any sort of identifying information won't get sent along. So same origin is the default. If you don't put this inside of your headers or inside your request object, then this is the default value. So I'm just leaving it for that for the moment. We'll come back and we'll make a change to this a little bit later. I'll show you how you can send cookies along to other requests. Now this is my HTML file here, and inside the no browse folder, along with the JSON, I have my htaccess. So there's the JSON file. Here's the htaccess. These guys are in the same folder. The HTML is at a higher level, so this htaccess is only going to apply to the sample.json file. Now inside of here, I have authentication. And if I put these on like that, so I've now enabled password protection for this folder, and I'm going to do the JSON request. The browser is going to prompt me. It's going to say, okay, do you have the username and password to get into here for the fetch? Now, we don't want to do this. We don't want to force the user to have to type something in. We're going to do it through JavaScript. So right now, if I hit cancel, my fetch request comes back with the 401 error, authorization required. Okay, I want to get around this problem and fetch the data without having to have the browser built-in pop-up. Let's say that we've got inputs, or we've gathered that information from the user in some other way without having that input pop up. So what we do is inside of here, we need to create another header. There is a header called Authorization. And this will be a value like this. It'll be the word basic, followed by a space, and then we've got a username and a password, like this. But I cannot just put the username and password in like this. The username and password with the colon separating them has to be converted into base 64 to be passed along with this. And we should be doing this as well on HTTPS. So let's fix this. I'm going to say basic plus, I'm going to have a value that I've encoded. So let's create that variable. This is going to be HTTPS. I'm going to reload this page in HTTPS as well. You should always be using HTTPS just to be more secure anyway, but this is what we're going to be doing. This page is HTTPS. We're requesting this over HTTPS. That way everything is going to be encrypted. So let's create a variable here. We'll call it encoded. The name of the variable is not that important. What is important is that we make the username and password base 64 encoded. So window.b2a, this is the function that we're going to call, the built-in method that's right at the root level, at the window level. It creates a base 64 encoded string. Okay, perfect. That's what we want to do. And I've created a username and password on this folder using my htpassword utility. So that's already been set on the server. This is the username, this is the password. There's a colon between them. And then I'm going to say the authorization value is going to be the string basic, and then a space, and then what we encoded, like that. So this whole value right here is going to be that variable auth. Okay, so this header has now been added. We've got one called accept, which has the value application/JSON, and we've got one which is authorization with this as the value. And we'll throw it in there. We'll log it out to the console just so we can see what it is. Don't need to do this in production, but this is just for us to see it. The headers are being included in the request. So let's try this again. We'll refresh, we're on HTTPS, our call is to HTTPS, our username and password are included. We click, and there it is. It came back. No more prompting from the browser to say what's the username and password. It's right here. And if I jump over to the console, there it is. Basic space, and then this, that is the username and password converted into base 64. And there's our data coming back from the server. So we got the value coming back. There we go again. Now, very often you'll have some sort of key that you're required to use to say that you're allowed to access an API to get some data back from the server. So this very well could be like your user ID and your key. When the API, when you signed up for the account and you were issued a key, they could be creating an entry inside their password file with, or in their database, using the user ID, and this is the key. So you may end up doing something like this with user ID and a key that was issued by the people who run the API, so that you can then fetch the data. And the one last thing I wanted to show you was just with credentials. Same origin. This was one possible value. I'll leave that in the comments. If you are going to a different domain, then you can use the value include. This means that any identifying information such as cookies will also get sent along with the request to a different domain. So that's if this is a different domain than what you're sitting on. All right, so I hope that helps you out. That's how basic authentication works. If you have any questions, leave them before. If this helped you out, please share it. And as always, thanks for watching.